I had a friend that was killed years ago, and he was very safety conscious, and he had a retention holster. It was a high-level retention holder on his regular duty gear, but he was also on the SWAT team, and he wore SWAT gear. And very often, the holster on the SWAT gear does not have a retention device, nor too does the taser holster have a retention device, but they are starting to make those because they're realizing how often and easy tasers are removed from officers in that cross-draw position so frequently. But anyway, I don't want to get into the details of this, but I want to mention that if you have a tactical holster, you might get a tactical holster with retention capability if you decide that you want to do that. But he's a very safe guy, had a very good holster while working, but on the SWAT team, his SWAT holster, the gun was taken, he was shot, and he was killed. So lesson one of that is worry about your tactical holsters. Also worry about your tasers being taken. But the following newspaper stories that occurred later was the major agency, police agency in our country, trying to cover themselves for having one of their officers take their gun away. And they started to show the public their excellent pistol retention program. And they had a sand pit. And officers would get into the sand pit, and a trainee would have his police rig on, and a trainer would then try to wrestle the pistol from the officer. And, they would do this for a while, then switch people. And they just thought this was the greatest training. But what was missing in this is nobody was hitting each other. The bad guys will strike you. You get to strike the bad guys. And so the training, as so typical, was nothing but wrestling over the gun. And so the officers and the whole program was not prepared for that bad guy who punches you first and then goes for the gun, or grabs the gun and blasts you, or blasts you and grabs for the gun simultaneously. These three things. So that's an important lesson, that we spend so much time wrestling over the gun, and we tend to forget, and it's hard to do in practice at a high-speed level, that these guys are going to be beating the snot out of you while they're trying to get your gun. And oh, by the way, you can beat the snot out of him while he's trying to get your gun. This never gets trained. So that training pit environment just makes me sick to consider how halfway they tried to tackle this problem. In trying to be diverse, you're going to see some clothing changes, a sport coat, a police uniform, not a police uniform. Because while this film is mostly about law enforcement, plainclothes detectives, and patrol, it also has ramifications, implications for civilian concealed carry and carry also. So that's why we're going to try to be diverse, but many of these themes will fit no matter what clothing you're wearing. We'll not have the time in this production to go through the dynamics and the details of how to strike, how to kick, how to shoot, how to use a knife, how to swing or use your baton. Those are studies meant for other videos and live training. We discussed this topic in other training videos. and I hate to be redundant, but this one stands alone by itself, so as a quick review, is your carry site or the carry site of the enemy, and you have a primary, a secondary, and tertiary carry sites that you are holding your weapon in, that he's got his in. And primary carry site, think quick draw. That is typically the belt line, the pockets, possibly, but quite unpopular, is the shoulder holster. But just think of primary carry sites as being those sites on the body where someone quickly accesses their weapon. Secondary carry sites, as a trick, think of backup. That's the gun or knife that's up the pants, down to the boots. That is the gun or the knife that's a neck knife, or some weapon that takes some digging to get it out. You have to know it takes digging time, precious seconds to get it. And then if you're dealing with the enemy who's pulling a secondary carry site weapon out, those precious seconds are precious for you. And then finally, tertiary, the third one, is a lunge and reach, where the weapon, the knife or the gun, whatever the weapon is off the body, either by design or just by accident. This is where he or she keeps their gun or knife. And so that's why in our business of policing, we always say, watch the hands, it's the hands that will kill you. That doesn't mean that you stand there and look at the person's hands when you're talking to them, but you have to keep aware of the hands. I've even heard in training once that it's watch the palms, which is very specific and I don't know how practical. But do keep track of the hands, and do be aware, as we talk about often, it's always a surprise how fast and far someone can lunge at you, at your gun, or to get their own gun. In review, think primary carry sites, think quick draw. Secondary carry sites, think backup. And tertiary carry sites, think lunge and reach. Another big question is, what is your basic knowledge of pistol disarming? I'll bet you haven't broken it down to the science that it deserves. To best prepare for his attack and taking your weapon when it's in place, during the process of pulling it out, during the process of using it, the scientific aspects of disarming are very important. How they disarm you from a one or a two-handed grip. Once you know this, you can better prepare yourself in keeping the weapon. How does he grab your gun? Well, he can attempt to grab your gun with his right hand from the front, or let's just say he's laid a clock down. We have 12, 3, 6, and 9. And you have a 12 o'clock grab with the right hand, a 3 o'clock grab at the right hand, a 6 o'clock grab with the right hand, and then from over here at 9 o'clock, maybe from the front or maybe from the side like this. Same thing holds true with the left hand. You have a left-handed attempted grab from the front, or 12 o'clock. You have a left-handed attempt from his 3 o'clock, a left-handed grab from his 6 o'clock, and then any sort of left-handed grab from his 9 o'clock position. Of course, then, you have the classic one of the two-handed grab. From his 12 o'clock, you've got someone grabbing with two hands. From his 3 o'clock, you have someone grabbing with two hands. From his 6 o'clock, a two-handed grab. And this horrible situation from 9 o'clock, a two-handed grab that may look like this, may look like this, or may look like this. And then let's go Air Force on us, and we'll pick that clock up to a vertical clock. He could be on the ground, he could be climbing stairs, he could be anywhere where the elevation has changed, and someone will be grabbing your gun from above, right hand, left hand, or two hands, or trying to grab your gun from below with right hand, left hand, or two hands. How many times are suspects put on their knees or told to sit on the ground, and you are wandering around them? And if they do make a lunge, it'll be from below. So we have the vertical clock of 12, 3, 6, and 9, and the horizontal clock to worry about, 12, 3, 6, and 9. The suspect approaches, he hits you first one or more times and then goes for the gun. Or the second one, he grabs the gun and hits you one or more times while he does it. And then the third one is a simultaneous crazy deal where he's not just grabbing the gun and wrestling with it and then you're supposed to solve that problem, but it's just a chaotic overall assault in which there's simultaneous strikes that occur as well as a simultaneous grab. So the first one is he grabs the gun and then starts to hit you. The second one is he starts to hit you and then he grabs the gun. And the third one is all that crap happens at the same time. So how is your interactive or interview stance? Where are your arms? And also important is where is your gun? If you're talking to someone, is your gun forward? Is your gun side back? These are things you have to consider. Many uniformed personnel today have a taser, and it's aimed in that cross-draw manner where the handle is just sticking out for someone to reach over and grab. So you now have guns on both sides of your body. Is your gun forward? Is your gun back? Where are your arms during this process? All things that you've got to figure out. So where is your holster? And what threat level is it? Is it kind of positioned up front? Is it here? Is it here? My goodness, is it here in the cross draw in your armpit? But what threat level is your holster? We all should know by now that the higher threat level, the more bells and whistles and tricks you have to do to pull that gun out. On the combat clock, where do you keep your gun and holster? On your duty belt or your dress pants belt or whatever? And some people have different locations. As we mentioned, someone grabs your holster and they start pulling on it. Will that holster travel around your belt? Is it kept there by keepers? These devices that police typically use. Things that you have to figure out. Many people in the military, and as far back as me in the military in the 1970s, has systems like a lanyard, for example. And this would be one that is attached to your belt. And this is like a old-time telephone cord. It goes onto your weapon, and it expands out the direction that you go. Now, this hangs a bit. It will get caught on things when you go about your business, but so does a bunch of other stuff that modern guys are wearing. Even extra pockets and things can get caught on stuff. But this means that if a bad guy tries to yank your pistol away, it'll only go so far. And then sometimes you could just run backward and maybe yank it right out of their hand. You see this type of device. Many people hate them. As I move on in training and simulated ammunition training, I've seen a lot of people drop a lot of pistols. They stumble, they fall, etc. And I've seen a lot of people lose their handguns. And I want you to know that that can happen. And it's not a bad idea. And I can tell you a few stories back in my military police days where people are alive today because of the lanyard attached to their weapon. We had a lanyard that ran from the top of our uniform shirt down to the gun. And that has helped save people that have fallen off the side of a hill, various situations I don't want to explain now. And then their gun is just at the end of this rope. Then you've got another style lanyard that is essentially exactly like a tape measure. It clicks on your belt and it goes in and out the distance of your average arm reach. And then you don't have that hanging problem where it gets stuck on something. It goes right up into your belt. And I'm just going to tell you that don't make fun of that or dislike it too much, because a lot of the guys in Afghanistan and Iraq have resorted to these because they understand how easily you could trip, fall, and lose your weapon. So another important aspect in your overall retention package is how do you draw this weapon? Does it tend to be sort of protected? A lot of people will throw this arm up in some way. I would like for the hand to be as neutral as possible. I'm not addicted to this hand on the forehead, elbow up. It's completely situational. Don't fall into that trap of every time you draw, you have to put this up. Life doesn't unfold for you like that. It's completely situational. I would rather people take a generic position and then worry about all these other specifics later, and then just remember your hand needs to be up, and then modify it to the distance of the person and the situation. But at any rate, how protected is your draw? That's another reason why the old touching the rib or keeping it close to your body and turning it up, that's a nice tight process, and it might be better for you. Do you draw it
to an extended one hand, two hand, or contracted one hand, two hand. It's completely situational, and I like to say that you have to decide based on the situation what you're going to do in terms of this, and not be a robot and always draw the gun two-handed grip.
We have gun in the holster and gun out of the holster. I like to split this study into those two areas. You're retaining the gun while it's on your person, in your belt line, in a holster, or it's out. And when it's out, we have a tendency to refer to it as while holding, because you are fighting in some manner while holding this handgun. And remember the big picture. Disarms begin at the carry site. This is for you disarming an enemy and an enemy disarming you. Disarms begin at the carry site. The disarms then proceed to attempts while drawing the weapon. And then finally, disarms occur while the weapon is out, while holding. The weapon is out, presented as a threat, or shooting. And this is the full spectrum that we have to worry about. And I also think it's important to mention that the weapon is drawn two fundamental ways. There's the old school way, in which I was first taught, and that is the bowler scooper method that goes like from 6 o'clock to 5 o'clock to 4 o'clock to 3 o'clock and come on. People will kill you, shoot you dead just as fast doing that in milliseconds. They can be very good at it. Or they shoot you, they draw the gun, or you draw the gun in the modern way, which is to pull the gun up. Oh, they're paranoid about it. A knuckle must touch a rib. It turns forward and thrusts forward. And so these are the two ways, the bowler scooper and this kind of hard angle draw, are the two ways that people are drawing the weapon. They'll be trying to take your gun during that process, or you'll be trying to take his. But I believe that most criminals have not taken the time to go to the range or to have muscle memory for this right angle knuckle turn. I think that most criminals don't have a holster. Most criminals won't be wearing their gun on their hip anyway. It's possibly here in the pelvis carry, which would be, on the clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock from me. So they'll be pulling the gun up in a bowler scooper manner at you, as opposed to this right angle. Who, what, where, when, how, and why? How will the enemy draw their gun on you? How will you disarm them? How will they come after you during the process? If you're pulling the gun out in a bowler scooper, a lot of catches are down here. If you pull the gun out in the hard angle, a lot of catches result in this type of high end. Quick review of the Stop 6, the subject matter of many of our DVDs. I don't want to be repeating the same things. We're just going to give you that quick overview. These are the 6 common stopping points of a typical confrontation fight. 1 against 1, or maybe 1 against 2, but usually 1 against 1. There are also the 6 common stopping points of an arrest, where people get stuck. The least you are trained, the more you'll be stuck in any one of these 6 positions. Stop 1 is out here. You get stuck in this kind of interview or standoff position. Stop 1 also includes the opponent's approach to the problem or your approach to the problem. Much to be said here. Now is not the time to cover that. It's in first contact, a lot of this information. So stop 1 is when you get stuck or stopped out here at this position here. Stop 2, if I go lunging for him, if he goes lunging for me, we often get hooked up, hands on hands, fingers in fingers. So this is a great example. This is a classic problem. You don't see this in the UFC because they can't do wrist locks, they can't do finger locks. But they may get stuck here momentarily, but they have to go to stuff that they can do. You won't see this in boxing, obviously, because they have gloves on. But this is a common stopping point. We spend time here, hand, stick, knife, and gun. The third collision is basically on the forearms. 2 people collide on the forearms. It could be out here. It could be 1 in, 1 out. But they have a collision on the forearms. We spend a lot of time trying to solve those problems, hand, stick, knife, gun. Stop 4, we've rushed in. I like to refer to it as biceps or clavicle. Stop, you see lots of people stuck here in fighting positions, and we try to solve these problems, hand, stick, knife, gun. Stop 5 is any kind of bear hug. It's usually chest to chest, but it can be chest to back, and a couple of other close-up categories that are like this. But stop 5 is bear hugs, head wraps, guillotines, headlocks, stuff like this. And then finally, stop 6 is on the ground. We do hand, stick, knife, gun material through all these stops. Very important. I had to give you this basis before we move on. Everyone should be able to deflect some common attacks. And we just run the super elementary combat clock program that is very conducive to teaching in groups and classes. And then you have a 12 o'clock block. Could be this way, could be this way. If he has a knife, we always try to put our blood vessel and muscles in. But you have a 12 o'clock extended, a 3 o'clock extended, a 6 o'clock extended, a 9 o'clock extended. Both sides, 12, 3, 6, and 9. And then you've got a tighter, more kickboxing style block. Might be 12. The 3 o'clock one, the elbow might be tight. 6 o'clock, and you have that style block at 9. So a tighter 12, 3, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. And then, of course, he hasn't grabbed your gun yet. You have 2 hands. You have any kind of 12 o'clock, any kind of 3 o'clock, any kind of 6 o'clock, any kind of 9 o'clock. You could have a cross block or zone blocking sometimes, which is classic boxing and very reflexive. Some of our most beginning neural reflexive movements are this zone coverage right here. Your hands are here at 12. Could be the zone coverage, could be like this. 3 o'clock could be like this, could be zone coverage. 6 o'clock could be like this or could be zone coverage. Or 9 o'clock could be this way. And this is the first level of protecting yourself against someone who is reaching to get your pistol. One of the first and common and universal responses when someone is grabbing your gun is, of course, you put your hand on top of his hand and push down into the holster. And that's just a universal response that everyone does. And unfortunately, a lot of people use 2 hands to do this, which just allows you to be pummeled to death. They beat the snot out of you because you're super concerned about being down here. And I've known some of my friends have done this and been pummeled to the ground by putting both their hands on their gun. So, but it's important to do a series of here, gun in, with your hand here and some other hand blocking skills. And we just use the combat clock. We have an extended high at 12. We've got a 3 o'clock block over here that's extended out from the body. We have a 6 o'clock block that's kind of extended out from the body, and a 9 o'clock block that's extended. We always say if he has a knife, you try to put the blood vessels and the muscles inward, but let's hope it doesn't get to that, but that's a clue there. So you have 12, 3, 6, and 9. Have your guys do that while shoving this gun deep down into their holster. And you can have a tighter version, a closer version, a 12. Almost like boxing or Thai boxing. A 12, a 3, a 6, and a 9 o'clock with your elbows closer to your torso. 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock with the extended, tighter 12, 3, 6, and 9. The first exercise you can do is the trainer will attempt to reach for the gun. But I'd like for you, to have 10 attempts from the front. You could just reach with the left hand. Get him used to seeing that motion. 10 attempts from the left hand, and then 10 attempts from the right side. 10 from the right side. Get some reflex and muscle memory in there, and come on out here. And then 10 attempts with both hands. So he sees from the front what that looks like. Then I'll come to the right side of him. Could be anybody in the crowd. Could be the friend of the person he's talking to. Who knows what it is. And we'll see some attempts with the left hand. Some attempts with the left hand. Attempts from that side. Attempts from that side. Then he'll regroup. See something from the right. See something from the right side.
Get about 10 repetitions of this in. From his 6 o'clock, we don't expect you to have ESP in our complicated situation that you're in, but maybe you can react on first touch. And so basically, you know what that's like when you feel your gun being touched. And this is an exposed, open carry kind of problem here. But you see that, and he starts to block it. You can try with the left. He won't see the left. I just want you to run by the numbers. And then the right hand, he'll just be responding. Perhaps I had to touch his shirt. You'll feel this ordinarily if you're just in an interview stance, but you will most certainly kind of feel this on action on your belt. And if you feel that, which I have felt in real life, that system should, whoa, somebody might be going for the gun. So try this a couple of times. Hit his shirt and let him block. Let him wait until he feels that. Then touch something. Touch the holster. And then, of course, the bad guy might actually touch the arm. Why is he feeling a sensation on his arm? And so that would be a good thing. If he has a long sleeve shirt on or a jacket, well, it's going to be difficult. Hopefully that jacket will protect his gun as clothing might. And we'll have the same deal. Let's try. He's going to block 10 attempts from his 9 o'clock of sun type. And then the left-hand attempts. And then the two-hand attempts, which could be like this or like that. So he's got to respond to these incoming stimulus. And is this time, we'll do it in slow motion, from the front, I attempt to grab and I attempt to strike. So he gets to use both his limbs in any way that he wants to. I attempt to grab, I attempt to strike. I attempt to grab, I attempt to strike. And so we have a split problem for him to deal with. I would like for you to do it from the front. A series of them from right about here. I attempt to grab, I attempt to strike. And strike could be anything. Could be palm strike, push, anything like this here. From the back, it's going to be tricky. I attempt to grab, I attempt to strike. Lord knows, if I strike first, he's in trouble. And you can use these same tricks. You tap the gun belt, tap the clothing, touch the forearm, and it's a sensitivity to worry about what's behind it. And then over here, do a series where I attempt to grab and then I attempt to strike. Notice how much footwork and body positioning Rawhide's having to do here to successfully pull that off. Obviously, the next set would be, I'm going to punch at him first and then attempt to grab. So he's got these double shots. And in a perfect world, when your spark plugs are absolutely firing like a race car, the situation is, the stars are in line, you can block and punch him or strike him. But that may not play out in reality of the situation. So this is a good deal to work. And your basic block and strikes are just need to be done too. So this time I attack and grab. And then I attack and grab. I could attack with the left hand and try to grab with the right. So he's constantly seeing these things happening and he's just responding to them. 10, 10, 10, and 10, and 10, and 10 in this complete combat clock. Another classic protective method is the full body twist. When they grab your weapon, sometimes you can take one hand and hold it down and completely shove. And we suggest using the other arm to help shove the person over. These are classics, depending on where it is. If he gets grabbed from behind, you have no arm maneuvers right away to knock away. But you just power twist and try to get out from under. A lot of times you sling the guy around. And so here's just an example of it from the front. His 12 o'clock, I grab with two hands and he turns and knocks it free. Here's a 3 o'clock version. Right about here, I grab with the thing, and he turns and knocks it away. Here's a 6 o'clock version where we grab and he twists away. And then here's a 9 o'clock version, which is tricky. You try to twist out of it.
discussing striking for retention, we have to divide the combat clock up and divide the subject of gun in, gun out. And so if I have a thread on my handgun and I grab it and shove it down into my holster, no matter where it might be, the striking limb is the free limb. And we'll borrow the classic combat clock from the military and discuss whatever strike it is we can train by striking from 12 o'clock, striking from 3 o'clock, striking from 6 o'clock, striking from the 9 o'clock side. All the while shoving this down, which is an important practicing skill, because you will find that people, when they're in their regular athletic position, they strike stronger in their regular athletic position. And when you take the other arm out and give it another task, such as pushing straight down, this hook punch from this side, which could come at 90 miles an hour, when you give the other arm another task, this hook punch becomes 70 miles an hour. This is scientifically proven through study. And so you defeat that problem by practicing all the hand strikes. And don't be lame about pushing the gun down. Push the gun down as though someone had their hand on the top of it trying to take it out. So you shove that gun down and you go through the strike system using the basic combat clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or the advanced combat clock, which is all the numbers on the clock. If you'll follow this numerical progression, you'll have great material for workouts and classes, because all this stuff needs to be done both standing and on the ground. So in a classroom environment, you can have the troops lined up, hand on their weapon, right or left side, doesn't really matter, and you can have them go through with their support hand the striking on the combat clock. And so, for example, they're here, you can strike at 12, strike at 3, strike at 6, strike at 9 with a punch, palm strike at 12, strike at 3, strike at 6, strike at 9 o'clock. You can hammer fist, 12, 3, 6, and 9. You can forearm strike, 12, 3, 6, and 9. You can elbow, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. You can just work right up the strike system in this environment, protecting the handgun and just striking from this side. Do it in what we call solo commanded mastery in the air, and then you do it against pads, and you can do it against a heavy bag to develop the strike.
Critical to this is Rawhide is shoving his pistol down into his holster, or my hand could be on his gun and he's shoving both his hands downward to keep the gun in place, you know. And so while he's doing this is a great drill for everyone to do. This distraction will take away from the force and speed of the other hand. It's just like a natural physical occurrence that you can overcome with training. So what I'm going to do is, as the trainer, I don't even need to mess with his gun, but I can. I'm just going to let him do some eye attacks while pushing that gun down. His job is to see if he puts his arm up when he lunges out, that type of thing. So you can get 10 eye attacks while shoving this down. Another way to do this is the trainer can grab the gun. He can grab my hand, and then he can do the eye attacks. Move around a little bit, and you see the idea. I can't tell you how important the eye attack is. Well, I can tell you, and I will shortly. But that might be your real key to survival, is not just an eye flick, but also an eye gouge. To train an eye gouge, this is a lethal force situation. We go back to an old military style training. You hit the side of the training bag and force the thumb in. In other words, you hit here and force over here. You can do a series where he's just like this, and then you can do the next 10 where you've grabbed his gun and he's forcing your hand downward. And make sure that you feel that pressure. Give it a test, you know. You're testing the retention capability of the holster as well as the strength. And then you put this up and he works on that gouge. Acquiring the good grip, and you know what he's doing is simulated on me. So no matter what I'm doing here, he's coming in and he's getting my eye and pushing me back, which is very important, away. I reach out for the gun, he gets it and pushes it down, and he gets to practice the palm strikes. Little palm strikes. Get about 10 of them in, or as many as you want to assign. Of course, next on the list are doing many numbers of hammer fists. And you can move around and shake it up, give him that terrible feeling of his gun belt being knocked over. The 9 o'clock, the 12 o'clock, and the 3 o'clock. The 6 is I might be here, and then he's going to have to come around and do a hammer fist. It may be a completely awkward turn for him. Then you have any kind of punches. Kind of keep it near your face, but not so that the trainer gets hit. We're kind of tight, but we're doing this. These forearm strikes. You must do all of these on the ground too. I grab the gun, he protects his gun. Here are some eye attacks. Some of the gouges where he grabs the side of the deal and works the eye attack. Driving his thumb into my eyes. I grab the gun, he grabs his gun to protect it. Here's like full finger pushes into the eye. Kind of important. That's what should drive the person away. Forearm strikes. Hammer fists. Might even be a downward hammer fist too. Multiple. Such a great tool. I grab, he grabs some punching. There's a downward elbow. Here's one to the side. He might be fighting me here. I grab the gun, he grabs his gun, and now it's turned from your average arrest to possibly a lethal force problem. As I'm pulling on this, here are the eye attacks. And let's do a couple of palm strikes while we're here. Then we have some punches. Then we have a couple of hammer fists. And then when you get to know your trainer and trainee a little bit better, you can throw a couple of punches and he has to block them. So use all this mix. Then we have a couple of elbow strikes. And then to the side. All the strikes that we've done, it gets initiated, he grabs the weapon, he protects his weapon, he pushes down into the holster. The trainer should be trying to get it out. And then he executes the required strikes. 4 combinations, we need a 3-armed man to hold the gun in place and then to deliver a knee or an eye attack or something. So he's going to have to put his hand on his handgun and shove it down by himself, just like the way we started. It's not a bad way to do it. And so that you have a knee and hammer fist or a punch, a knee, maybe a groin shot. But in other words, he's learning to kick and punch again with a subliminal protection of forcing his handgun down into his holster.
We spent so much time discussing all the strikes, possible kicks that are involved, and we've demonstrated them while the gun is in the holster. But this is also good practice for you to do is while holding the gun when it's out of the holster, when it's out. So probably we hope our professional gun handlers are going to bring the gun up, turn it, and start shoving it forward. But you may also be pulling from here. So what I suggest that you do is have that whole strike series that we have done earlier in this while holding position. And then that entire strike series in the high grip position. So that you're doing all these strikes while holding the gun while it's out. We have our strikes while the gun is in and the gun is out. But not only do you have the opportunity to pull out a knife and possibly open that knife up and cut the person, but you also have your expandable baton. And you know, this closed is a pretty meaty sized weapon, and it's not a bad idea to pull it out, and you can strike with it closed. Do you have time to open the baton in the fight? I don't know. But you can certainly hit this person about the neck and the face, you know, hook punch style or back fist style, which could really increase your striking capabilities tremendously. And so what you need to think about is a series, not just striking the person standing and on the ground, not just taking out a knife from somewhere and cutting the person, but also think about getting this baton out, not even opening it under stress, and using it as a palm stick to strike that person.
When I am working out sometimes, and I suggest you do this, this is simply a hand weight bar. Weighs a lot, good for the exercise, or you can use a knife, or you can use your regular expandable baton or wooden stick. I'm just using this as an example to perhaps inspire you. I push down on the gun. I've got a 12 o'clock slash, a 3 o'clock slash, a 6 o'clock slash, and a 9 o'clock slash. I have a stab at 12, stab at 3, stab at 6, stab at 9. Expandable baton, closed or open, whatever. Practice both ways. Get that gun. He has got his hand on the gun. Push down, or you got your hand, and he's trying to take it out on top of your hand. Either way, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. If it's a short closed expandable baton, you have all the hammer fist strikes. There are many knives that are for sale. You see the push dagger style that are aimed this way, that are stuck right in a police officer's belt, or anyone's belt for that matter. And hey, how great is this? The best knife for self-defense, other than a real hardcore military situation, is probably the push dagger. The push dagger has the knife in the middle. You can slash with it, you can punch with it, and it's a very natural way to attack someone. And so this is not like the push dagger, the edge is on the top, but you can punch forward and stab someone and cut him. And I grab his gun, and then I grab his throat. He's got to take out this knife under all this pressure, and then what is he going to do? Let's say he stabs me in the stomach, a couple of times. Maybe he cuts the gun arm, which may or may not have that great effect on it. And so you see he's busy acting like a surgeon on here, when he could just possibly stab me, push me right in the eyes. He could stab me in the eyes too. But sometimes the knife fumbles and hits the ground. You can experiment with this. And so here, that would be a frontal or a 12 o'clock attack. Here's one from here, from the side, where I'm getting him, and I'm trying to get his gun. He's got to wrestle with that and open up that knife and stab me. A 6 o'clock attack, I touch the gun. I grab him here. I'm trying to take out that gun. He's got the... And now what is he going to do? Well, he can stab, he will turn, so you can see that right into the thigh, which I may, after I get about 6 of those, forget the gun somewhat and try to capture his hand. But that's an example of opening a folder under stress. I don't want to say any name brands, but those kinds of push daggers that are angled like that, the officer, the civilian, would think about, if he's protecting his gun here, then the handle should be available over there. And it would just be pulled out. That's a pretty quick deal. I want you to buy one, I want you to have one. And a bazooka if you can get it. But if I grab his gun, he's got to protect his gun, and I grab him or start to punch him, he can pull out that knife real quickly. It's already open and ready for action. He can start attacking me with it. So the only drawback is that thing is there. They're good for you in a ground fight, but it's there, and the suspect can see it and perhaps pull it out very easily too. Maybe, maybe not. But being here is easy access in a ground fight. Here or here, a civilian may decide to wear their folding knife here or here too for right or left hand access. Push that gun down, utilize the combat clock, the basic one, the 4 numbers, or all 12. 12 o'clock slash, 3 o'clock slash, 6 o'clock slash, 9 o'clock slash. If your knife is sharp from here to here, you can come right up. If it isn't, you have to be edge aware, turn the knife, slash upward. You've also, on the saber grip, got a 12 o'clock stab, 3 o'clock stab, 6 o'clock stab, 9 o'clock stab. Reverse grip, 12, 3, 6, and 9. Stabbing, 12, 3, 6, and then 9. Thrusts and hooks. Do them standing, do them on the ground. This is not the video, the time and place to be super studying knife or stick. Push down on that gun, simulate the attempted takeaway. You have a 12, you have a 3, you have a 6, you have a 9. You have all the numbers of the clock, or you have 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock. Do the reverse grip if you pull out in a reverse, 12, 3, 6, and 9. Stab at 12, stab at 3, stab at 6, stab at 9 o'clock. Other gun out issues, we just like to tell you that the retention of the quick retraction is a good way to retain a gun sometimes. And if you're in close quarters, the third eye concept of searching is not a bad way to not offer up your gun to someone who's nearby, or perhaps around a corner or something, as it might be like this, having it back here. But from a two-handed grip, gun out, a retention movement is to pull the gun back if someone tries to grab the pistol. If your gun is really grabbed very tightly, some major police agencies around the country are doing a complete, not only an arm retraction, but simultaneous with a body drop on the back. The bicycle pump kick, every person should know, carries a gun or doesn't carry a gun. And that is, there are really two ways to do this. There's the one on the small of your back, which you're just going to bicycle pump this person off of you. You can't do this for too long. You will become exhausted and you have to get up. But if the person is close, you can bicycle pump them away. As far as maneuvering is concerned, look at the area of friction that my whole back is covering the ground. And if I have to turn, it's not a big deal, but it can be because I've got a lot of friction on the ground. And I want to remind the uniform corps watching this is, what do you got back here? Do you have your handcuffs back there? Your shark repellent, whatever it is that you've got on the bat belt. This is all coming to play when you are on your back. You can't get to it for one thing, but it's also possibly hindering you. So you've got flat of the back bicycle pumps, and then you've got a hip bicycle pump where the pivot point is your hip, and you can be much faster this way. And then you can also bicycle pump a person off. And don't forget, either whether you're on your back or on your hip, the bicycle pump can include takedown, push-pull takedowns on the person's leg. Years ago, I was fighting a very large guy, and he had allegedly broke my partner's knee in a fight. And I was running upstairs to catch another guy. And I heard my partner scream out in agony, so I ran back downstairs. And this big guy was on top of him, on top of a couch and on top of a living room table. I hit him a couple of times in the side of the throat. I could not knock him out. So I decided I was going to choke him out. I ran around the furniture, pretty much climbed on this furniture, and got him into this classic interlocking choke position to start to choke him out. During the process of this, getting this set up, now I'm horizontal, I felt his arm travel between us and grab my handgun. And as a result of this, thank goodness, I was doing the choke from this side. And I was able to take my gun hand down and protect my pistol and then continue the choke till I choked him out with an arch. Now I learned that night that whenever I teach this choke to gun carriers, concealed carry or otherwise, I would always suggest that the interlock be on your gun side as opposed to your non-gun side. If I had to protect this gun, I would have completely lost control of the neck restraint and the choke. Do you follow what I'm saying? So it's always good if you're a gunman or gun woman to choke on the gun side and then go from here. He's got me in this choke. And so if I'm struggling, I got a second to think about it, and I go to grab his gun, he's able to use his hand and prevent me from pulling out his gun. Whereas if he were choking in the other direction with an interlocking choke, interlocking over here, and he had to protect his gun, he would completely lose this move to protect his gun. And so what I suggest that you do is old school. I'm here, right? If I come down, you can go back here and arch back and complete that choke. But as a choke in combination with handgun retention, interlock on the side of your handgun. When someone's in front and they grab the gun this way, it is typical that it'll come out upside down. I'm a stupid, dumb criminal. I don't know that. And yes, there are stupid, dumb gun holders that don't know that if the gun is taken out from the front in this common grab position,
that is going to come out upside down. That means that this guy has to pull the trigger, shoot the gun upside down. What are your safeties in this weapon, such as a .45 with a grip safety? Is there enough forward force to make this gun function? Things of this nature. Is there pinky strength enough for a person to pull the trigger on certain revolvers? I've tried to do this on the range with certain revolvers, and I did not have the strength to fire the weapon. It was a big Magnum handgun. And so these are issues that when you pull this, the person takes the gun from you. This is good for him and his weapon recovery, because the gun often comes out in the bad guy's hands upside down. He's surprised. He doesn't, maybe while he's trying to upright the weapon or trying to make it work like this, you can go and get your gun back.
Really? Are you going to turn corners with this extended two-handed grip or extended one-handed grip? Because you don't really know who's waiting right here or who's waiting right here. So the environment and cornering is a critical aspect. And if you're not careful and your arms are extended, someone could jump on your arms, grab the gun, grab your arms, and remove you of your pistol. So if you must turn a corner fast, try to slice the pie if you have the time. Sometimes you really don't have the time in real life situations. But be as careful as you can and contract this weapon back so that your arms aren't out fully extended, so that you become an easy disarm.
In the beginning of the film, we talked about the stop six, the 6 common stopping points of a fight or even a typical arrest. These problem-solving measures are really stop 1. I grab the gun. He sees this happening. He gets to grab my forearm. A lot of times people will freak out at this point. They'll think they're going to go into handgun retention mode. They'll put 2 hands on the gun, allowing him to come and hit you and knock you out or whatever. But really, you have control of your gun in this situation. I'm going to ask you then to practice let go of the gun, step away from the gun. Now the gun is not in a handgun retention problem. You can slap release, pull the gun if you still continue to need it, or you can slap release, and if you can, arm drag him over to the side just so that you have a better freedom to pull the gun out. I don't know why you're pulling the gun out. You may decide you don't need to at this point. Maybe kick him or something. But if you're persistent in pulling the gun out, this is one thing that you can do. So he grabs your forearm. You let go of the gun, step away from the gun, slap release, draw the weapon, or he grabs, let go, step away, slap release, pull it aside, and then you have the chance to do it. Remember the science and the math on this. We have a right-handed grab, we have a left-handed grab, we have a two-handed grab to worry about. This time he reaches with that hand. Well, a slap release is not going to work. But you let go, step back, you can do a push-pull. Possibly some sort of a drag that allows you to pull the gun out. He grabs, you let go, step away from the gun, slap release, and then don't drag. You maybe just pull the gun out from here. I go for the gun, he grabs my forearm with 2 hands. I let go of the gun, I step away. What are the mathematical possibilities from here? You can strike him right in the face. All the things that we covered before, you have the eye attacks. But you can hit him. If his throat is exposed, you can hit him. You can hit here, possibly yank your hand free. Or you can have what is classically referred to as a double unlock to slap these hands free. You have all those possibilities. Maybe you'll have to do every one of them. But he has grabbed my forearm. I let go of the gun. I step away from the gun. Strike, 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 strike. In classic counter 2, you can make a 2-handed grip and do a curl and rip out. You can double unlock if you want to. But these are ways to get out from that double-handed grab. Not just right in front of you, but in various directions. If he's grabbed you from behind, you can turn and get it into your 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock area. If I grab the pistol and he grabs my hand, remember that you have all of these strikes too that we've just covered excessively. And so it's not always that you have to step away and slap release. You are back into this striking area, just as though he grabs my pistol and I grab, push down, and strike, just like we were talking about earlier in this film. Now we have some discussion on gun out of the holster, or defending yourself while holding. If I get to pull this gun out some of the way, he grabs me with that side, Depending on the situation, you could shoot him, but it has to be a lethal force problem. Remember all the other things that this hand could be doing, which we'll show in a second. But this is just a practice series for you. You can do basically the same thing. You can slap release, step back, and continue on with the problem. If he grabs you with this hand, you can push, pull, release, step back and continue with the problem. If he grabs with both hands, well, hey, don't forget the hand switch. It's a possibility. It's been done before. But you can also attack him, hit these arms. If they don't let go, you've got a double unlock to keep your gun. He grabs the gun. Your finger may or may not be in the trigger guard. Well, common action from here, depending on what else he's doing. But isolate this first. Is this push-pull to try to get the gun back out and free? The slide will be pushed forward. You shouldn't have a malfunction if this happens. Don't worry about fixing it now. If it doesn't shoot, fix it when it doesn't shoot. Don't waste your time doing unnecessary malfunction repairs. It's not a good idea. He grabs, as it comes out, he grabs the pistol from the other side. You step away by doing that. Let's just put this out. Many pistols are not so big that a person can get both hands on the gun. He has one hand on the gun, one hand on your hand or wrist, and you're just double unlocking the problem. He's got the two hands, kick, beat, spit, do all that stuff to him. The eye attack is possibly the best thing. But anyway, after you've done that, to clear this, you might get to strike to clear this, or you have this double unlock process. So we talked about some problems on the low end, but we also have problems here on the high end. So as this gun is coming out, he's caught it in this manner. Same deal, you have a hand switch. You have a slap release. If this hand grabs over here, you have a push-pull release. If he grabs two hands, hit him a bunch of times, and then if these strikes don't release it, you have the skill of the double unlock. You can have a stop too, where you've hit. I will try, if he's got my grip, I'll try to release my hand and then try to get the gun. Don't forget, he may then go right back into a stop one situation. And we have a forearm collision. Stop three. You clear this, get out the gun. You have a bicep clavicle problem. I decide I need to pull my gun. As I come down, he follows me down. And now I have to deal with that, and come out and take the gun. You have the common bear hug problem. I reach for the gun. He reaches for my hand. I have that same style release, a slap release from here. If I'm down here in the stop six in the ground, I reach for the gun. He grabs my forearm to prevent me. I let go of the gun. As we did standing, we say step away from the gun, but there's no stepping down here on the ground. I come out, I release this here, and then try to pull out the weapon if I need to. So these applications all have ground applications. You have a one-hand grab on the forearm. You have the other hand grab on the forearm, which usually involves a push-pull release, and then the troublesome two-hand. Try to strike the guy, double unlock, get this hand free. I just want to say that we're struggling. I'm the guy on the top side. I don't know why I'm going to shoot this unarmed man on the ground. And I want you to think about that. There are many other options to do than to shoot this person from this topside position. I've worked these cases. They don't work out well for people. So you must have these other alternative measures to fighting. But let's say if I try to pull the gun, he grabs for it. I let go of the gun, move away, and then get a release of some kind, same side, cross, or double, and then I'll pull the gun out, but I just worry that you realize what you're doing here, and the situation has to rise to the level that you need to shoot somebody who's under you. It may not go well for you. Think about this. Of course, this guy, he's grabbed. And we've already discussed that grab and this and fighting from here. But he's grabbed my forearm. This is the other things that this guy does. He's beating you. He's choking you. And so you have to include this now in your practice. You've isolated this removal. You slap that free. You hit him. You do the push-pull. Or you slap this free. You hit him. You let go of the gun. Step away. Do the push-pull. Include the flack from the other hand. We've already done, he throws a punch. You're blocking it. Striking. We've already done that. Start putting all these things together. Take a look at these, do them, start out slow. You cannot learn how to swim in a tsunami, as my friend Joe Hubbard used to say. And start out slow, do them, increase the speed, increase the force, until you're capable of doing them at higher, more reality levels. When all is said and done about weapon retention, if you lose the gun, then you have what they call weapon recovery. You've got to immediately, quickly lunge in and try to get that weapon back. And that is a whole other subject. Essentially, that is weapon disarming. It's the best way to look at that topic, and we can't cover that here. This is just about retention. But your next responsibility is to prepare for the subject of weapon recovery.